Hello, everybody. It's me, Virginia. Welcome back to the Living on the Verge podcast. I can't wait to tell you guys about my weekend in Weho. So, I decided to do just a special podcast to tell you all about it because when I tell you there's a lot to cover, there's a lot to cover. I may even have to break this down into two podcasts because I had a weekend full of fun, some craziness, some awkward moments, a lot of laughs, some really good people, and some uncertain cuisine. So I went to West Hollywood this weekend and I was able to crawl around and have a lot of fun. I went to a bunch of places that I'll tell you all about. And I was there to meet with a podcaster that you may have heard of. And that's David Yontef of Behind the Velvet Rope. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with him as well. So, anyhow, I asked David where I should stay, and he gave me a recommendation for a hotel. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But I made the reservation and I connected with the girls, and I headed out there to crawl around WeHo for the weekend. So, let's get into what really happened. I got to my hotel. It was a lovely spot, regular room, clean enough. I was not concerned about the area of WeHo that I was in, and they had valet parking, $60, $60 a day to valet, but you did get in and out privileges. So anyway, I get to the hotel, I get checked in. They were very nice. They let me check in early, and I got to my room. I unpacked. I was already wearing what I was going to wear, so I jumped in an Uber and I went to Tom Tom, which was going to be our first stop, and jumped out of the Uber. Listen, as a side note, you guys, Ubers in West Hollywood come in like 1 to 3 minutes. No joke, and prices were lower than usual, so I wasn't feeling completely gouged because I knew I was going to be drinking, so obviously I wasn't going to be driving. You're not going to get a Karen Huger moment out of the Living on the Verge podcast. Not this girly. Anyway, I get off of the Uber and I see Holly. She's as cute as I thought she would be, and she was very sweet and very welcoming. Sarah and Kimberly, who are the other two who were going to join us, were running a little behind, and traffic was a little crazy, so I was a little late myself. But anyhow, we get there, and Holly tells me that she had already walked by something about her, and she was scoping things out a little earlier, and that Schwartz was inside and Zach was inside. And it looked like we were going to have a really good time. So I was really excited. And, we waited for a few minutes and then we got seated. So we get taken to the table way in the back. And at first I thought it was a little odd just because it wasn't very crowded. I expected it to be jumping. My understanding is that it's kind of the place to go on a Saturday afternoon because of its location, and it's kind of a hang out and drink during the day and then walk around the rest of the area. But I didn't get that vibe. It was a little slow. So I thought, okay, well, maybe, we're just early, or I don't know. Anyway, as we get seated, we walk by Schwartz and Zach, who are sitting in a group with, a few other people, and they look to be engaged. And then there's another girl who I see that looks to be like that person that is just kind of standing on the periphery. And I don't know what that's all about, but I find out a little bit more about that later. Anyway, I'm kind of just observing more. It's my first time at Tom Tom, so I'm looking at the vibe and the scenery, and I forget sometimes, I told Holly this, that I'm in West Hollywood and I'm literally at the place where, all of these people hang out and are part owners. So I may want to look at faces instead of keeping my head in the sand like I normally do. And so that's what I'm kind of trying to do. And I sit down, and it Sarah and Kimberly get there. They're very sweet. They sit down. We notice the chairs kind of sink in, so we kind of do a little musical chairs to get chairs that are comfy enough. And um, maybe 10 minutes go by when I realize that nobody's been by to ask us if we want water or if we want drinks. And I thought, gosh, maybe it's because we're seated way back here. But there was another table of two behind us, and I did see the server go there a couple of times. So I was a bit taken aback. I thought, well, maybe they're waiting for our whole party to get here and get situated. I don't know. All of this to say, it finally took somebody from our table getting up to talk to I don't know whom, to get somebody sent over. And by the time that person got back, they must have gotten distracted talking to somebody or something. The server was actually at our table, and I did make a little comment about how we kind of had to send somebody over to see if there was a server who would come and help us. And so it was kind of an awkward start, but I thought, what do I know? This is my first time here. Maybe this is just the vibe. And come to find out after, listening to Sarah and Holly's podcast this morning that no, it was an atypical experience, even, for Tom Tom. So anyhow, we finally do get to order, and I order some cucumber vodka concoction that had pepper on top. Sarah ordered the same thing. I think Kimberly had a mimosa, and Holly had water. And Holly mentioned it later, but this struck me too, Holly. The tiny cups of water with no ice, and then they don't even leave the bottle. So I felt like the water was to be rationed, and I remember very consciously one sip of it before I got my alcoholic beverage because I was afraid I would run out of water before I got my drink. And I was already kind of parched because we'd been sitting there for a minute. So okay, let's go on and see what we can glean that's fun from this. Well, we all decided that we're there for brunch, so we took a look at the menu, and I wasn't underwhelmed, but I wasn't overwhelmed by the options. And so I went with the classic. I usually try to judge a new place by a classic, like a Mexican restaurant by their carne asada tacos, and a brunch place by their eggs Benedict. So I ordered the eggs Benedict. And I think Holly ordered more like appetizers, tater tots, and cauliflower buffalo wings, which I later took a bite of. Those were good. And then Sarah ordered some little breakfast sliders, which looked very uneventful. And I think that Kimberly ordered what I ordered. Anyhow, we get our drinks, we toast, and our food comes, we start to eat, and uh, Kimberly comes back to the table and tells us that Schwartz's brother, who just moved into town, is going to come and join us for a little while because, he's new in town and he wants to get to know people. So he comes and sits with us and he hangs out. He's a cool dude, very soft spoken. He's one of the triplets and real down to earth. We're talking about how it's his birthday. So everybody says happy birthday. And then he leans over and says, I have to be honest, my birthday isn't until Monday. So it was funny because he's just that kind of a cat. And I thought that was really cool. So happy birthday yesterday, Bert. That's my mom's birthday. It's a good birthday to have, good people born on that day, and happy birthday to your brothers. And anyhow, he stayed with us for a while, and then I told him he should probably go order some food because he had missed our order, and he went off and did that, and then I ran into him later. But we finished our drinks. Somebody ordered a second round of drinks when I was in the bathroom, and somewhere along the lines, the music switched to the DJ who started, and the decibels just skyrocketed. So we went from, pleasantly chatting to shouting across the table and leaning forward. So that wasn't very easy with Mr. Soft-Spoken Bert, but we made it work. Anyhow, the music was fire, and Kimberly, who has purple hair and is a huge Prince fan. Chant, you would have loved Kimberly. In fact, she invited us to Paisley Park, and that would be something fun that we could do. They were playing some really good music, but it was super loud, so it was a little bit hard to hear, but it made for good dancing in the sinking seats. Anyway, we kind of, wound down and we knew that we were going to head over to a Tale of the Pup, which was one of the places that I think it was Joe went to with Lala during the season of Vanderpump Rules, which that I remember being a really awkward scene. Anyway, we walked there, and upstairs from there is the Lucky Tiki, which is a bar now, and it's got a really cool vibe. I'll get into that a little later. But anyhow, so Sarah had wandered off, I'm not sure for what reason, and Holly had to go, so she had already left. And I went over with Kimberly to go talk to Zach and Schwartz, who were just a couple of tables down. And I walk up and Zach reaches out and gives me a big hug. Really cool dude. Real good vibe, asked me my name. We sat down, and there was a cute little girl who had gotten up to go to the restroom, so she told me to take her seat, and I sat down, and that has me now sitting next to Schwartz. And he was talking to someone, but then as soon as he got done talking to them, he turned over and, introduced himself, and we started talking. And I had already kind of met him over at the table because they came over, Schwartz came over and brought, the candle with the little carrot cake to sing happy birthday to Sarah. So that was kind of cool. That kind of made up for, the delay in giving us the service, and it made it feel like we were now part of the Tom Tom experience, because until then I felt a little kind of removed. Anyway, flashback to we're sitting in the group, and I'm talking to Tom, and he asked me, how everything was and what I was doing for the weekend, and just small talk. And I, told him that I was happy that his brother was here, and he thought, it was really cool. And, he said he was really happy his brother was here too. And then he told me that he was here with his friends who were just introducing this new skincare line. And he asked me if I was a vegetarian, and I said no. And he said, well, that's really cool because, I've been using the skincare line, and it's got beef tallow in it. And he grabs my palm and he says, I'm 42 years old, like feel my face. And I flip my hand so it's not the front of my fingers touching his hands, just his face, just because I thought, just in case. And he has really smooth skin, you guys, just so you know. Super, super like down to earth, human, real interaction. And it was very cute. He says, I'm 42 years old, and, look at my skin. Like, I've noticed a measurable difference. And I said, I made light of the situation. And it was a close physical moment that was unexpected from me to Schwartz, given that I had just met him. Anyway, I said, well, dude, where do I get some? Because I'm 58 years old and I can really use some. And he goes, wait a minute. And he literally stands up and he goes, you're not 58 years old. And I said, yes, I am. And he says, well, don't tell anybody that anymore because, you could take 20 years off of that. And ha ha ha, Schwartzy, I think you might have been flirting with me. Word on the street is you like older women. I know you got a thing for Lisa Vanderpump. So, was that it? Do you think he was flirting with me? I'm just kidding, everybody. But it was a very cute moment. So, uh, all that to say that if the beef tallow skincare people want to send me some to try and see if it does, in fact, make my skin feel as soft and gentle as Tom Schwartz's skin felt, I'm more than willing to give you guys some free publicity and talk about your lovely product on my podcast. So there you have it. Anyway, I turned around and I started talking to um Zach, and he was really, really charming. First thing I asked him was, "Are you excited for the show?" I'm sure he gets that a million times a day. And he had a really fun answer, which I'm not sure if it's a rehearsed answer, but I liked it. He said, "It's going to be a really epic season compared to season one. It feels like a season finale every 3 episodes." So that tells me a lot. It tells me there's going to be a lot of peaks and not so many valleys. Get what I did there? Just being silly, you guys. Anyway, I looked him in the eye and I said, "So, does that mean that it gets as crazy as it looks like it's getting? And does that have anything to do with Jax's timing?" And he gave me that good old Zach side eye that he gives, and didn't say much more. So I went on to ask him how Kristen was doing, and he said she looks lovely. I told him I thought she was one of the most beautiful pregnant people I had seen, and I really meant that. Remember commenting that on her Instagram when she first posted her pregnancy photo shoot, because she really does look pretty. And he said she's doing well, and that they're excited and they're getting close. So I can't wait to see how all of that plays out this season. But we took some photos and you can see them on my Instagram. And, we said our goodbyes and went on to our next stop. So Holly said that it was walking distance, and Sarah checked, and it was, I think, a little less than half a mile down the street to go to Tale of the Pup. And it's a beautiful day in West Hollywood. It's a gorgeous day to walk. Holly mentioned the energy in West Hollywood is like ridiculous. It's off the hizzle. Um, that was lame, but I'm gonna leave it in because that's just me. Anyhow, um, it's a good vibe, man. Like you're walking down the street and everybody's having a good time and, smiling and walking around with bags because you know that they're there just enjoying life just like you are. So I thought it was a good day to walk, and Holly said it wasn't a bad walk. And of course, I'm wearing 3.5-inch heels, but I'm feeling good and thinking, oh, I could do it. I'm in, semi-decent shape. We start walking and, a couple of blocks down, uh, somebody else mentions, how far is this place? And I turn around and said something like, I don't know, but and then somebody else said, well, I'm not going to complain because I'm not in heels. And I can't imagine, I'm already getting tired. So it seemed a little bit further than half a mile, Holly. And if I had it to do again, I wouldn't do it in heels. But that's my bad because I really probably should have brought the loafers that I had with me, but I left them in the front seat of my car before I sent it into the parking structure and whatever. That's a whole other story. Anyway, we finally get to Tale of the Pup, and we're there a little bit early for our reservation. And apparently it's really small and really exclusive, so there's a time limit. And we're sitting down outside. You can look at some of the pictures that we took, and we're just kind of hanging out, chatting, and people watching. And this group of people, before I notice, are kind of lingering by the hot dog. And then next thing you know, they're setting up a photo shoot. And so, they're shooting a picture of this guy that's got this, really cool looking dramatic face with the black lace shirt and the black pants. And in the middle of the day in West Hollywood, it's a little warm, so there was obviously something going on. So me being who I am, I say, "So what are you guys doing?" And he says, "Oh, we're having a photo shoot." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Oh, because I'm a musician." And he said, "Do you want to be in the photo shoot?" And I said, "I do." And I was just being kind of silly. And, I don't know what the heck they went on to do. We ended up going back to talking about what we were talking about and kind of wondering what it was going to entail for us to get into the highly secret uh, Lucky Tiki. And the girls had said that there was a pickle jar involved or a pickle barrel involved. and a secret entrance, and then there's a red door that you can see, and that's the secret entrance. So eventually the time comes, the photo shoot ends. It's our time to head in, and as we're headed in, there's another cute little couple that's all dressed in Hawaiian uh, attire waiting for their reservation. They were a few minutes behind us, and we later saw them in there. And so, sure enough, you open a pickle barrel and you put in a code, and then the red door opens, and you walk up these dark stairs through these cool tiki enchanted beads with the vibe going, and it's super dark but really cool. The gal greeted us. She was very sweet, very friendly. Much different vibe than the entrance, to Tom Tom. The greeting was nice at Tom Tom, but other than that, the service was a little bit of a struggle. I mean, anyway, I digress. So we sit down at a little high top tabletop for two, and we had just had, the eggs benedict and the brunch, and I didn't really eat much of it, so I was still kind of hungry, and I took a little look, and they did have like little bites, but Sarah mentioned it was a really tiny table, and it was kind of an uncomfortably small space. So I had no intention of really ordering any food. And, apparently the draw of this place was the legend of it all. So story goes that this was Jim Morrison's recording studio back in the day. And if you look on my Instagram, there's some pictures of the plate that's downstairs in front of the place that, in fact, proves that that is true. And you do kind of get a really cool vibe in there. As soon as you walk in, it kind of smells like sage and kind of that like hippie-esque kind of feeling. More to follow on the smell later. But so back to what we're going to order. I'm looking at the drinks, and I should have thought about it. I'm not a real like a tropical drink kind of a girl, and I'm in a tiki room, so duh. Obviously that wasn't going to be a thing. But Maya, mommy's podcasting. I'm going to need you not to be a barker today. Okay, sorry. I think she stopped. Anyhow, I look at the drink menu, and they've got this Elvis drink that's got, I think it was a whiskey-based drink with like peanut butter and bananas, Foster situation. And, Kimberly asked the server, who was really cute girl, what do you recommend? We hear that the big deal is the presentation. And she said that the Elvis drink was going to be a really good drink to try. And so Sarah ordered the Elvis in Hawaii. And then Kimberly, she is a Mezcal girl. And so she ordered a drink called the Ghost of Jim Morrison. And that one is, I looked it up just because, we were in Jim Morrison's old studio. And it says, crafted in honor of Jim Morrison, letting us borrow his old recording studio, Kopali rum paired with our Lucky Tiki blackberry shrub and a burning rosemary as a tribute. So that's the one that she got. And Kimberly, reading the ingredients, unless I'm wrong, if that's not the one you got, there's no mezcal in it. Anyway, I don't know. I asked the server for a recommendation. I said, I normally drink vodka sodas. What would you recommend? She says, do you like spicy? And I said, yes. She said, okay, I'm going to give you the spicy one with mezcal. And I said, well, I don't really like mezcal. She goes, that's okay. If you don't like it, I'll, take it off the check. Bring you something else. I said, okay. So I was feeling adventurous and I went for it. So we're excited about the presentations on our drinks, and the drinks kind of don't come out at the same time. If I remember correctly, um, let me think about this. Yeah, Kimberly's drink came out, and hers was the Ghost of Jim Morrison's. And then my drink came out right with hers, I believe. But her presentation was basically she lit the rosemary sprig on fire, which explains the smell now, you guys. Every time that drink is ordered, there is a smoke fest in the room with an pungent smell of rosemary. So if you like rosemary, yay. If you don't, probably don't order that drink. If you're allergic to rosemary, maybe don't go to this place. Anyway, so that was the presentation. Not to be mean, but it was a little underwhelming, in my opinion. Kimberly liked the drink. She said it tasted smoky. I didn't taste it, mainly because I thought it had mezcal in it, and I'm not a mezcal girl, but it turns out it has rum, and I'm really not a rum girl, so I'm kind of glad I didn't taste it. Anyway, I'm getting way too deep into these drinks. My drink was very, very interesting. It was spicy, smoky, and sweet, featuring Madre Mezcal, Thai spice, and firewater bitters with passion fruit pearls. Now, it was served in this super cool tiki cup. I don't even think we took pictures. It was really dark and it was kind of, I don't know, hard to maneuver. There wasn't a lot of space to like get a good picture. Um, Anyway, the passion fruit pearls, delicious. They were so good, and I'm not like a boba girl, but it was mostly like really a lot of crushed ice, and then really heavy on the fire water. The Thai spice was nice, but because I'm not a mezcal girl, it didn't do it for me. Maybe if there would have been a little bit more of the passion fruit pearls, and honestly, I could see the same combination with the vodka working. But all of that to say, I did ask them to bring me a vodka soda, and then they finally brought Sarah's drink, which was the Elvis in Hawaii. Now, this was supposed to be the big one, I guess. I'm not really sure, but basically, um, it wasn't just me. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it in the place because I wasn't sure what anybody else was feeling, and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But both girls agreed with me. They were quite underwhelmed with the presentation. It did look like a Amazon purchased Elvis head with maybe like a rainbow light inside of it that had a lei around it, and they brought it on a tray, and then they brought the drink, and the drink had it looked like flambéed bananas laying across the top of the short glass. And Sarah said that the drink was good. I didn't try it because I'm not a peanut butter and banana girl. Um, but she said it was good. And um we had our drinks. We enjoyed the moment. The nostalgia was really cool. The vibe was cool. The people were really nice. And we knew we had other things to do. And, we knew we weren't going to order a second fruity tiki drink. And so we, had our time and got the check. They did not take the drink off of the check automatically, but as soon as I reminded them, they did very happily. And we paid the bill and we headed out. So this time we were smart enough and we knew we weren't going to try to walk to Sir. We were running a little early for our reservation, but we figured we'd be fine by the time we got there. So we jumped in an Uber and got over to Sir. You guys, I've been to Sir before, and my my okay, how am I going to say this? The first time I went to Sir, my daughters-in-law and I went for the afternoon, and it was because we were going to Sheena's live podcast at the Bourbon Room. So the first time we went there, you could feel it. We parked across the street. We, jaywalked and ran across the street. The pink Sir car was parked out front. We took pictures. We started getting all excited. We walked up with our big excited smiles on our faces, and the hostess greeted us with like a bubbly personality. And it was after the time that, the old Vanderpump cast work there. So no longer was, Lala there or any, even the younger kids. Nobody was really working there. So they had a new group of, not known faces. And before the people who are there now. So, there was excitement and a vibe and a sense of they knew that you were there because you knew where you were, and not necessarily, it turns out, for the food, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Anyhow, so we get there this time, and we walk up, and Sarah checks us in, and the hostess was, she was okay enough. She greeted us, but she didn't, make us feel welcome, if you will. And I don't know if that's mean to say, and I'm not on this podcast to just like diss the, Vanderpump restaurant brand, but, the staff could try a little harder. It's not I eat out a lot and I don't mind spending money on food, but at this price point, you expect to be treated a certain way. And just because you guys are about to be on TV, allegedly, doesn't mean that you should get to overcharge people for, you know, subpar food and then treat them like you're doing them a favor on top of that. So anyway, I that's the original feeling I got, which was very different than the first time I went there. And then in looking around, the place looked a little bit more run down. But to be fair, the first time I went there was during the day, and this time was during the evening. So I thought, Virginia, don't get too deep into your head. Let's just go with the flow. So they asked Sarah if we were going to be eating dinner or if we were just going to be having apps. And even though we kind of wanted to sit at the bar so we could kind of be in the middle of all the ruckus, we knew we wanted to eat dinner, so we opted to sit in the garden. And so they walk us back to the garden, and lo and behold, they walked us to the exact same table that Courtney, Sarah, and I had sat at last time we were there. So that was kind of funny and ironic, and I pointed that out to the girls, and I literally sat in the exact same seat. So I'm sitting with my back facing to, what ends up being the outside of the restaurant, and so I can see people who are walking in and out of the garden. And Sarah opts to sit with her back to, the people and the activity, if you will. So she's facing us and therefore the outside of the restaurant. And it's not jumping, but it's busy, and I will say that the service was better. They came up relatively quickly and asked us, gave us water and gave us cold water in larger glasses. You'd be happy to hear, Holly. So we got ready to order drinks, and the girls ordered, I believe they both ordered pumptinis, and I ordered, I think it was called a green goddess or something like that. I had to look it up, so it was kind of uneventful, to be honest with you, but I was really caught up in the moment too. So I don't want to be too unfair to the drink because it was tasty, but I think I was kind of at a let's take a little bit of a break with the drinking moment. So I kind of nursed it anyway. Anyway, we ordered goat cheese balls, and the server came over, and this guy, I wish I could have remembered his name. I wish we would have asked him his name. He was a really great server, a lovely personality, not pushy, not obnoxious, no air about him whatsoever, 100% personable. I believe he was Italian, and he had worked for, the Vanderpump brand for a while because he had said that he worked with Sheena at Villa Blanca back in the day. So whoever he is, he's been around for a minute. And if Bravo has no plans to put him on the show, I mean, nobody's asking me for casting advice, but these are the kinds of personalities that we would like to see a little bit more of versus the people that were there that I'll tell you a little bit more about as we, go through. So, it's Sir was surreal, you guys. It was just not what I expected it to be at all. So here I am, this, new friend into a group. And I know that there's a little bit of history between Sarah and Peter, but I don't know like the the meat and potatoes of it all. And I'm just there to like eat food and do recon and, hang out with new friends and have a good time for the weekend. So I can sense that there's a little bit of I don't know what. And then the girls start to point out the different people that are there that are alleged to be on the upcoming new show. So one of the persons was Demi, and Demi was nice to me. I bumped into her in the hallway, but I later come to find that she has a little bit of a beef, maybe with Sarah because of some misunderstanding between Peter and their podcast. And it's something that is supposedly very easily resolved, but anyway, it gets weirder. So Sarah had bumped into Demi, I don't know what the hell we call her. I'm gonna go with Demi. Anyway, she had bumped into her as we were walking in, and I didn't know that. And then when we sat down, she told me, "Oh my gosh, I bumped into Demi," and she, and I had kind of an awkward interaction. So I went later on to the restroom and I asked her where the restroom was, and she was very sweet to me, but she didn't see that I was sitting with Sarah. So anyway, I get back to the table and the server, gosh, I hate calling him the server. I wish knew his name. Knew his name. Anyway, he goes on to tell us what the specials were, and I didn't hear anything that was exciting. And another thing, when I looked at the menu before I went to Sir this weekend, I was excited about some of the things that I was going to be able to eat. That was not the same menu that I was handed on Saturday night at Sir. So their menu is different, and then they offer a couple of options that are off menu that were specials, and nothing that seemed exciting to me. And listen, when you're talking about $32 for a hamburger, you've got to be serving me, something with maybe some Wagyu, something that is going to be worth the elaborate price tag. And I get you guys have rent to pay, but I'm not going to pay you $32 for a hamburger. There are too many places within walking distance that would blow this hamburger out of the water. And I know that because the last time I was there, somebody at my table ordered one and it wasn't horrible, but it was nothing to, write home about and review. Anyway, that's the foodie in me, and so I apologize, sir, if the foodie in me is being too harsh on the reality TV podcaster side of things, but that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. So we get the goat cheese balls, and I like the little salad that comes with it, and I had one of them. I was excited about ordering food, and then after looking at the menu, I really wasn't excited about what to order. I wasn't going to pay $60 for a steak. So I wasn't going to order a steak regardless of the price tag because I knew I was going to have a steak dinner the next day. And I ended up opting for just the soup. And I believe I this is really bad, you guys, but I can't even tell you what the soup was. I believe it was like a potato leek mushroom something concoction. It was kind of light brownish. It was a pureed soup, and the girls had salad. Well, not the girls. Sarah had a salad, and Kimberly ordered the cavatelli, and so they were going to have an entree. So my soup was served with Sarah's salad and Kimberly's entree. And looking at her entree, it was one of the specials, and it was like a mushroom ragu cavatelli, I believe. I almost got that. I'm so glad I didn't. It did not look good. I knew the food at Sir was nothing to write home about, but I wasn't really there for the food. I was there for the ambiance and the company and the intel. And you know, good thing because the food lived up to what I expected. So they bring my soup, and I'm a piping hot kind of person, but I'm also not as worldly as I'd sometimes like to pretend I am, and I thought maybe this soup is not meant to be served piping hot, so I'm not going to say anything. It was warm, but it was not piping hot. And it was rich and it was decent, but I didn't finish it. And given that that was the only thing I knew I was going to have because I was going back to the hotel after that, um I probably should have eaten it or ordered something more substantial. And all of that to say that's how not great it was because I didn't care. But also there was I'll talk about it a little bit here, but it didn't really affect me except for it was probably one of the most awkward moments in my life. And it really didn't have to be, but I didn't know what was going on in the moment except to know that I'm a pretty good judge of character because it felt awkward as shit and I wanted to get the hell out of Dodge. So there's this spreadsheet that was discovered over the course of the weekend that is kind of detailing the happenings at SIR, which, by default will then give us information on who may possibly be in the new cast and like what the, inner workings and the relationships are. And apparently there's already a lot of drama. And in looking at this spreadsheet, there's already this guy's dating this girl's with this person's ex and um, a lot of information that, to be continued. You guys will just have to keep listening to the podcast and I will continue to give you the deets as I get them. But we know that Demi is supposed to be on the podcast. And then apparently Marcus sold Holly the gift card that she later gave to Sarah, which thank you, Sarah, for using your gift card to help pay for our dinner at SIR. And Marcus is then maybe a manager. I don't know. Anyway, he's supposed to be on the show as well. And then there is Natalie, who was bartending, I believe, that night, and she's supposed to be on the show. And then there's Paolo, and I'll tell you a little bit about Paolo after I get into the other story. So I'm going to spend a second ranting about kids these days, and I know it's going to make me sound like an old lady, but I mean, I just want to talk about it because, the truth is, I have sons in their 20 somethings and they're personable and they're kind, but as a whole, that age group does not really quote unquote like people. Wait, quote like people, end quote. There we go. And I don't know what it is, but it comes across. Like my kids, thankfully, I hope you guys, if you're doing this out there, fix it. But my kids don't come across that way with people, but damn, it makes you feel like they're doing you a favor to talk to you. And I don't know if this is because they already know that they're casted, and I don't know if it's because, me being the new girl on the block, I didn't realize that the company I'm keeping is maybe causing me to be treated a certain way. I didn't know. I'm just the girl there hanging out with two new friends. And I don't think that's what it was. That's the bad part. So, anyway, that was just the general feel of the place itself. And that's not what I felt last time. Last time I was there, I got up and I went to the restroom. And on my way back, I felt like cool and vibey enough that I walked around and I recorded the whole place. And I remember the bartender saying hi to me and asking me if I had a fresh drink. And I was able to buy a candle. And the gal up there, let me into the little area that they had at the time. That didn't seem to be there anymore, but maybe I just missed it. I don't know, it just felt different. And so, Vanderpump, I know you're listening. I know Lisa Vanderpump, you got up this morning and you were like, Virginia's going to podcast today. It's her 5th episode. I better get my coffee and make sure that I'm ready to listen. So, when you hear this, do better. I know this is probably not, buying me any favors with the group, but you guys, you got to do better. If this is going to take off like the first show that we all love so much, there's a lot riding on this. You guys have to make people feel like you're happy that they're there. And I didn't feel that. So let me tell you a little bit more about why. I get back to the table and Kimberly says, "Oh, there's Peter." And we can see that he's just about coming into the garden room. And I said, "Oh, I want to meet him." And I had seen Peter the last time we were there, I believe, and just waved to him, but I never really met him. And uh, so, all right, Kimberly, I'm going to say it. Kimberly shouts out, Peter! Not super loud, but loud enough that he wasn't in the room yet. So he felt sort of, I guess, summoned. So he kind of looked up and it was dark. And, he walked over to our table. He's the manager. Maybe he thought something was wrong with you know, our dinner. I don't know. But he walked over and Kimberly said, do you remember me? And it was a little awkward because he didn't really remember her. And I don't know if it was because it was dark or because he meets a bazillion people. But the whole exchange was really weird. And I could tell that Sarah was trying to make herself as small as possible. And I didn't know all the reasons why in the moment, but I knew it was super awkward. So the conversation got a lot weirder. To me, you guys, the weirdest part was the candle exchange. Like his face totally changed when, um, in order to break the already tense tension, somebody asked about his candle collection. And he said very defensively, "Oh, well, I'm not really doing that anymore, but yeah, I still have some of those. I have a lot of them, in fact." And then he realized that that might have made it sound like he wasn't doing well. So then he said, "But I'm doing a lot of other things." And then he said, "And I have this big billboard. It's right down the street." And it was just like he was falling all over himself for I didn't know what reason. Well, I don't know what the hell, but anyway, it got weirder and weirder, and I didn't know what to do, so I just blurted out, "Can we take a picture?" Which actually made it weirder because Sarah had no intentions of taking a picture. So she jumped up and said, "I'll take the picture." And you can see the awkward picture of Kimberly, Peter, and myself on Instagram if you want to. Anyway, he ended up, leaving after that. And honestly, Sarah's soup got there. It was cold. We, went through the rigmarole of the bill and got the hell out of Dodge. I felt totally awkward. Sarah let us out the back way. We sat down in the alley. We were sitting on the infamous chairs. It was pretty nasty back there. Sarah has a picture of a burnt statue that she shared with me, and you can see that on my Instagram. And we're sitting there just kind of, wrapping things up as we're getting ready to part ways and get our Ubers back to our hotel. And out comes a guy. And I had noticed that there was a black Triumph parked out there by all the trash and all the boxes. And, this guy comes out, literally has to kind of walk in between us to get to his motorcycle. And I said, "Oh, so that's who the Triumph belongs to." Crickets, awkward silence. The guy did not even acknowledge. And then he kind of just looked over and then he got on his bike and he just took off. So come to find out that that is Paolo, who is also supposedly going to be on the new show. Paolo, you should be nicer to people. I get that we were in your alley. Apparently somebody else came out later. I don't know if they were out coming out to smoke or whatever. They are also going to be on the show. I can't remember who Sarah said that was. And as soon as she saw us out there, she walked away as well. So within a few minutes, before the rats and the fire and everything else ate us alive, we left the elusive Sir Alley, walked across the street and caught a Uber in front of Chaconi's, who, when I went back into my room, I saw on Instagram that while we were over at Tom Tom, Schwartz and Zach had snuck off, or maybe it was just Zach, I can't remember, had snuck off to Chaconi's to have lunch with Nia from the Valley. So there you have it, you guys. That's all just on my Saturday. So as I figured, I've run out of time. I'm not going to tell you anything about my dinner with David Yontef so on this episode. So you'll have to listen to the next episode to hear all about my Sunday, kind of the rest of Saturday night, and then Sunday in WeHo. And I hope you enjoyed listening. I had a really good time. And of course, join me here. I'll be following up and telling you all about the rest of my weekend on the next episode. But it's really great to have you as we are all living on the verge together. Have a great day, guys. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Living on the Verge podcast. If you like what you've heard, I'd love 5 stars, and don't forget to subscribe. If you have any hot tea or blind items, I promise you can stay anonymous if you like, or if you want your name mentioned, I can do that too. Just email us at livingonthevergepodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach us on Instagram at Living on the Verge Podcast. So again, thank you. Come back again and join me for the next episode and see what I can get myself into, and we can all be living on the verge together. Have a nice day.